Hello, loves. Welcome to Sorry Satan, the Souls for the Savior, a place where we talk about life, trauma, healing, and the strength it takes to keep moving forward when life tries to knock you down. I am your host, Carrie Hamilton, and I know what it feels like to walk through the darkness. I've faced trauma, loss, pain, and challenges that could have easily defined my story. But instead, I've chosen to use those experiences as testimony, not for just what broke me, but what I survived. Through my journey, I'll be sharing personal stories, lessons learned, and realities of healing alongside conversations that bring hope, motivation, and inspiration to those who may be suffering in silence. My goal here is simple: to be the light for those who we have lost, a voice for those who feel unheard, and proof that survival is possible even when the odds seem stacked against you. No matter where you are on your journey, I want you to know that your story matters, your pain is valid, and your future is still being written. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Sorry Satan, the Souls for the Savior, where trauma becomes testimony, survival becomes purpose, and hope rises above all. And now I turn you over to today's episode. Hello, loves. Welcome to Sorry Satan, the Souls for the Savior, and I am your host, Carrie Hamilton. Before I begin today, I want to make sure that you have seen the opportunity to receive $500. If you have not, you could look on all of my social media pages, but I have opened a nonprofit called Patsy's Purpose. You could visit it at patsyspurpose.com. And what I am doing is every year since my survival, I give back. And it's more so for appreciation of just the gift of life, and then spreading kindness and love and doing the Lord's work and just letting everyone know how amazing they are and changing lives in some sort of way. This year, I have decided to give $500 to individuals who submit either via email or via P.O. Box, postal mail, any type of, you could do cards, you could do photos. If you have children, have your children, or grandchildren make pictures with kind, words on them. But basically all this documentation that I do obtain, I will be giving to the local domestic violence shelters, Ronald McDonald Homes, which is kids with cancer, also retirement homes, hospice centers, and so forth. And every entry that you give will be an opportunity for you to be the $500 recipient. On my birthday, July 10th, is when I will do the drawing for everybody who has given their act of kindness. Don't forget, you must share the video as well, share the word, and add Patsy's Purpose on Instagram if you haven't done so. But help me spread kindness, spread love, and hey, get $500. Now let's talk about today's episode. We're going to talk about a topic that is pretty much like a white elephant in the room, and many are afraid to talk about it. It's about suicide. If you ever felt like pain was too much, or if you ever wondered whether anyone would notice if you're gone, or if you've sat in silence and carried a burden just so heavy to explain, this conversation is for you. Maybe even if you've experienced someone that you have lost to suicide. A lot of individuals have that shoulda, coulda, woulda type thing. They project on themselves. They feel remorse. They feel guilt, shame, so forth. I want to talk about those situations as well. I know what it feels like to walk through darkness, to battle wounds that no one can see, and to wonder if you'll ever get better. But I also know this: your story is not over. The chapter you're in is not the end of your book. And today we're going to talk honestly about suicide and the pain that leads people there. Before I begin today, I just want to emphasize that this episode can be triggering. We will talk about deep things that could trigger old wounds and stuff. So please make sure that you proceed with caution, and if comfortably to do so. If you're listening right now and maybe not understanding life and thinking if you will be missed or if there's hope or healing or purpose when life just seems impossible, I want you to know that your life has value and your pain is real, but so is the possibility of healing. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger or thinking of suicide, please do call the emergency services number at 988. Again, that's 988, which is a suicide and crisis lifeline hotline number that you could call or text right away. You don't have to face it alone. I think right off the bat, it's only warranted that I start with statistics, because the percentage of suicides that happen in this world is astronomical. And I truly believe it's because we lack communication in this world. We are so big to just send fast text, send a fast email, get our point across. We don't feel that emotion anymore. And if love is a language, how can you give love and speak the love language if there's no communication? So many people are reading into things as they perceive them. And whatever you are going through, you could be having a bad day. And if you read something, it could be totally opposite from the communication action that the person is trying to give. And then that just builds up and builds up and builds up. And then the next thing you know, it causes chaos. We truly need to get communication back in this world. There's 3 things that the devil enters and the devil will literally attack. And those 3 things are distraction, desperation, and discouragement. And what more distraction is there than the convenience world that we're in and then the lack of communication that is out there? These statistics show that more than 49,000 Americans died by suicide in the year 2023. And if you do the math, that is 1 in every 11 minutes someone is passing from suicide. Right now, in this year, it is the 2nd leading cause of death globally. 1 in every 100 deaths worldwide is suicide. And men die 4 times more than women do. Men are about 22.8% per every 100,000, and women are at 5.9% every 100,000. Men account for roughly 80% of deaths by suicide. This is way beyond mental health. Like, this is to a point where people need to know they don't need to carry the pain alone, and they are not in this darkness by themselves. And now I say this jokingly, but maybe this is why so many people are single, because the mental health crisis is truly a crisis. I mean, 80% of deaths being in suicide, that means so many individuals are suffering. And I tell this to all my male clients all the time. I say, listen, man, it is not your muscles that make you strong. What makes you strong is a good, healthy mind, because the absence of ease is disease. And if you don't have that ease and that peace of mind, without a healthy mind, without a free mind, you are sick. And when you are suffering, suffering is a form of isolation. So a form of feeling and being separate. And being separate is a dark place to be. And maybe you're someone that lost a loved one to suicide and you're still sitting with the pain that you feel guilt or shame, or you just don't understand, or you're trying to find some sort of reasoning, maybe even feeling that you're to blame because you couldn't stop the situation. I want you to know something on a science aspect. Our brain is literally the steering wheel to our lives. If you are a repeat guest of mine, you have heard me say that many, many times. But truthfully, it is our memory board and tells our body how to react. Our brain is ran on chemicals such as cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine, serotonin. These are all the different chemicals that are released in our brain that alerts different parts of our brain to tell us how to react in different situations that we're in. Like dopamine and serotonin is the feel good. So obviously if we are in some sort of intimate relationship or, in some sort of fun atmosphere, that is what chemicals are releasing to our brain because it's telling us how to react in those situations. So now when we are in trauma or chronic stress, that is where we have cortisol and adrenaline going through our body, because that is what alerts different parts of our brain so that we can protect ourselves and react in certain situations. Now, with that being said, if you are out here blaming yourself or feeling some sort of guilt or shame regarding someone that you lost to suicide, that is no different than blaming yourself for someone having a heart attack or going into organ failure who was a drinker or something in that nature. Because I want you to understand something. When someone is in chronic stress, they are constantly releasing cortisol in their body, and cortisol causes inflammation. Now, let me go into detail here. So when you are releasing cortisol and adrenaline, you have two responders that are in your brain that tell your brain how to think and how to react. If you are in chronic stress, you are constantly opening that first responder, which is the amygdala. And the amygdala is like, let's just say it's like your brain's smoke detector. It's telling your brain there's threat, there's danger. It's storing emotional memories such as trauma. It's triggering that fear, anxiety, all the deep emotions. It's that fight and flight or the freeze and fawn like responses. So if you are constantly releasing the cortisol, you're never allowing that first responder to stop in those feelings. So fear, anxiety, emotion, your brain is constantly saying, this isn't good enough. We're in danger. This is not enough. It's horrible. I'll never come, out of this and so forth. You're never allowing that second responder to come into place, which is the prefrontal cortex. And that prefrontal cortex then is the logical thinker. It's that decision maker. It's the planning and problem solving, the emotional regulation. So that's the one that if you say something, say you get into an argument with someone and you say a bunch of stuff, and then, a day later, a couple hours later, whatever it is, you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. I should go apologize and stuff like that. That is then your prefrontal cortex coming into play. But if you are in chronic stress, you are never allowing the chemicals in your brain to function past the amygdala, so that first responder is always in heightened. And now, keeping that in mind, cortisol causes inflammation. This is why so many trauma victims, if they go give blood, 90% of them have some sort of autoimmune disease, because that is the cortisol caused so much inflammation within their body that they now have some sort of autoimmune disease from that trauma, from going and being in that heightened chronic stress for so long. So this is also why and how suicide happens, because your amygdala never stops responding. You're in that stressful and heightened situation, and in time it causes inflammation in the brain, and basically it's like having brain failure. And they don't have that scientific medical, diagnosis out there, but that is literally what it is. It's like your heart running on fast all the time, and eventually you have a heart attack. It's the same thing. It's basically a brain organ failure, because your body never shuts down from that chronic stress. And now, circling back to that roughly 80% of men having the suicide death rate, this comes from a generation where men are told that feelings and emotions are weakness. Truly, for all the men out there, think about it. How many times have you been in situations where you weren't allowed to feel your emotions? You had to get up, you had to get over it, you had to brush it off, you had to keep on going. That just keeps that situation in that amygdala, that first responder, which is that fear, anxiety, and so forth. It keeps you in that state of mind. And in time, it's like taking a bunch of seeds and planting them in your body, because you're not allowed to water them. You're not allowed to feel them. You're not allowed to see them. So what you're doing is you're taking these seeds, you're putting them in your body, and in time, those seeds grow. And the next thing you know, you're living unhappy. You're living in a place where you're running on survival, because that amygdala is what is making your decisions and your thought process for every single thing that you have going on in life. And you're not thinking or even living in a place of the prefrontal cortex, which is the place of safety. You're not allowing yourself to get to that aspect. So it's like you're constantly living in that unhappiness. And you have to feel to heal. That is how healing works. If you don't feel certain situations and so forth, you're just, again, planting them in your body like seeds. And then the next thing you know, they start growing. And when you come into a situation that triggers that past, next thing you know, it's a bigger deal than what it really could be because you never felt it to heal it. And this is why so many men are struggling as well mentally, because they feel their worth and value is in what they do. They need to get more, do more, be more, have more, where truthfully their worth and value isn't what they do. It's in who you are. And that is the mental aspect of your being. And now, also referring to the mind, suffering only exists in the subconscious mindset. And what is the subconscious mindset? That is basically the filter over your conscious mindset. So picture like an iceberg. Above the water is your conscious mindset. So that's like awareness, your decision making, your logical thinking, your inner voice. And then below the iceberg, so in the water, that's the program. That is your past experiences, your trauma, memories, beliefs, influences by what, people's emotions, people's reactions, any type of process outside of, awareness of yourself. And then it's like your automatic functioning. So it's going based upon old beliefs, past beliefs, and so forth, what you've been trained in and past experiences that you have gone through. So if you keep that amygdala and that first responder always going, and you never allow that chronic stress to stop, and you never allow that amygdala to rest and that second responder to kick in, that prefrontal cortex, which gives the logical thinking and the decision making, well, clearly you never can be in that conscious mindset, because that's where the decision making and the logical thinking take place. So suffering only exists in that subconscious mindset. And the way to get into the conscious mindset is by reducing that stress, by releasing that cortisol that is going through your body. And the only way doing that is removing yourself from the atmospheres and the environments that are making you sick. And speaking of sickness, trauma, chaos, pain, suffering, this has become so normal in our everyday lives that so many are becoming desensitized to it. And the way that we cure suicide rates and getting to this point in our lives is by bringing back that communication, bringing back that love, that care, checking on your people, because it begins with depression and isolation and anxiety. Those are the chemical imbalances that begin to put that amygdala, at an everyday chronic way of functioning. And as I said before, the absence of ease is disease. This is why so many people are dying from disease, and that the average lifespan for a man is 75 and a woman 80. We're so close in the same lifespan because every single one of us are projected to trauma and chaos and confusion and so forth, which is, again, the devil's way of attacking. That is keeping the mind messed up, and keeping that mind into, a mental health crisis is how that we're taken advantage of. That is how disease comes into play, and suffrage comes into play. We have to make sure that we are giving love and care and communicating with our loved ones, and making sure that it is not getting to the point of the chronic illness and mental aspect that so many are becoming desensitized to, because it's becoming the norm. In Romans 8:6, it says, "The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the spirit is life and peace." We have to make sure that we are spiritually feeding ourselves and not being emotionally led, knowing your spirit, doing that healing, feeling those feelings, because those are going to allow you to then go into the logical thinking and decision-making aspect, and not allowing the trauma of suicide and that being an answer for you. Because I will tell you one thing, the one thing that people who attempt suicide and people that commit suicide, they don't want to die. They actually want to live. They're living every day in suffrage instead of living to physically live and enjoy life. And when people pass, what do we say? We say, rest in peace. And so what these individuals go through and in their mind, having that amygdala triggering them with fear and anxiety and emotion and fight and flight every day, eventually they just want peace. And so the answer for them is death, because it is when you rest in peace that you find that peace. So check on your loved ones. Make sure that they are doing well and ask questions. Pry on them. Of course, one who gets to a point of suicide, they don't announce it. They act as if everything is okay, because truthfully, everything is okay for that day. And it is an organ shutdown. It's where the amygdala gets stuck. And the next thing you know, it is past the point of survival. So we have to make sure that we are getting our mind healthy, getting into the habit of releasing that emotion and feeling and healing and spreading that love and kindness and light to everybody, because that is what is going to give us ease instead of disease, and to break this chain of suicide rates and freedom. It will cost you everything, but it's going to cost you everything that isn't real. And letting go is how you start to move forward and gain that strength in your mind and know who you are spiritually, not just emotionally and mentally, but spiritually, who you are in spirit and what feeds your soul. So please, those out here that are saying it's selfish, saying of all the things, all the blessings they had, they had a business, they had kids, they had this, they had that. Those were actually the things that kept individuals going, that, kept them going one more day and not giving up. This is a matter of a chemical imbalance and a organ malfunction, an organ type failure. This is not something of a selfish, self-centered type situation. For it to get to the point of suicide, it is at the point of, like I said, an organ failure and a chemical imbalance in the body that is releasing so much more chemicals that is causing inflammation and allowing that amygdala to stay open and not allowing someone to have logical thinking. And now, before we close today's episode, I want to leave you with this. If you're struggling, please don't suffer in silence. The pain you're feeling today does not define your future, and it does not determine your worth. There is hope, there is help, and there are people who care about you more than you realize. Remember, a permanent decision should never be based on a temporary feeling. Your story is not over, and your life has purpose. And even in your darkest moments, God has never forgotten about you. Thank you for joining me today for Sorry Satan, the Souls for the Savior. If this episode touched your heart, please share it with someone who may need to hear it. Until next time, keep choosing hope, healing, life, and love. And I hope you know that I truly care. It is in your desperation that the devil will take over. I promise you, I have been in that place, that dark moment, ready to surrender my life because I craved peace so much. I was literally fighting the devil to run away, to escape. I tried the legal route. I tried every single avenue that I can possibly think of. And I felt like I just kept being pushed under water, and I kept struggling to survive and to breathe and just get one breath. And I promise you that don't surrender your soul. Do not give that devil your soul, because they will take everything from you, and what they truly want is your soul. You've ran this race. You've gone so far. Do not surrender when the finish line is around the corner. I promise you that there is so much more to keep on going for. And you have me in your corner and chanting you on every single way. I truly care, and you are welcome to reach out at any time. Just know that you are so incredibly loved, and thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you soon. Much love.